2023 County Commission meeting. We are back from our lunch break. We're going to take agenda item departmental number 4, approval of a collective bargaining agreement between Martin County and International Association of Firefighters for fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2027. Who's kicking it off?
I will.
Oh, here he is. Hello, sir. You had the suit and tie. You just blended right into the room. Matt Graham, how are you, sir? Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Graham, Assistant County Administrator. Today, I'm here before you for your review and consideration of the IFF union contract between the International Association of Firefighters and Martin County Board of County Commissioners. This is a 3-year contract. Before we get started, I just wanted to recognize some of the individuals and all of their hard work on this contract. First of all, Sarah Walker, she's been with me doing negotiations for the past 6 years, but she was actually the chief negotiator. She took the lead on all of this. As well as David Hayes. David Hayes was our secretary. He took all the minutes, and he reformatted our entire contract from start to finish. Matt Resch for all of his financial help in coming up with all the different financial proposals and the cost associated with those. Of course, Elise for her legal review, all of our fire chiefs for their subject matter expertise, and then, of course, our union, which is back here, Scott, Pete, they really did their homework this time around. We had negotiations that began in January, and our goal was to bring it to you all before July 1st, and we were able to do that thanks to everyone's hard work.
Sounds like you're winning an award.
Yes. So, well, there's a lot of hard work. There was a lot of late nights on this. I know I got emails from David Hayes behind me up until midnight. So I'll now turn it over to our fire chief.
All right.
Nice job.
Good afternoon. For the record, Chad Chanchuli, Fire Chief, Martin County Fire Rescue. So today's a pretty exciting day for us to bring this forward to you. But before we begin, what I would really like to do is take this opportunity to educate the public a little bit before we get into the contract itself. So recently we did an open house at Station 14, and during that open house, we talked about a few things out there. One was a modern fire station, modern firefighters, and we talked about how seconds make a difference. Seconds count, seconds save lives. And what we realized walking away from that event is the general public, they don't know what those seconds look like. So what we did is we put together a very quick 3-minute video of a call, and it's going to actually display and showcase how our personnel actually operate on the street. So with that, I'll kick it over to you, Matt.
Fire rescue, what is the address? Something happening to this guy. Look, sir, tell me exactly what's going on. I don't know. This guy crashed into a pole. Oh, okay. He's having a fit or something, or a heart attack or something.
Thank you, Matt. That right there was a true display of professionalism, all the way from the dispatchers to the firefighters on the street. I'd like to quickly break down what our citizens have just watched in this video, because it's very important. What you saw were firefighters at the beginning there. They were about to have dinner, sit down at the station and congregate. And that's what our firefighters, this is their second family. This is their home away from home. As soon as this 911 call came out and the tones dropped, you immediately saw them switch gears. They were responding to a call, a single vehicle, motor vehicle collision with heavy, heavy damage and occupant entrapment. This call that I'm talking about right now, it's not an outlier call. This call happens on a daily routine basis. So this is a routine call. You saw them immediately leave that area where they were congregating, head out to the bay, get their gear on, get in the truck, and get out those doors, because their goal is to get to that call as safely and effectively and efficiently as they can to mitigate the scene. So let's talk about what they do when they get on the scene. First, they have to overall do a scene size up. They have to understand what the hazards are, identify those hazards to be able to mitigate the hazards. And what they had, obviously, was the vehicle entrapment, or the patient entrapped in that vehicle. So they had to actually cut the vehicle to get to the patient. This is what I want you to think about when we talk about vehicles. The vehicles that you drive, the safer the vehicles are for you, the more difficult it is for us to cut into those vehicles. So they identify these hazards. The other things they identify is not only how to cut the vehicle, but where to cut the vehicle. Right now, the electric vehicle world is growing. It's growing nationwide. That type of vehicle is probably one of the most hazardous vehicles for our firefighters to actually cut. If they cut in the wrong place, that could be immediate death to a firefighter. That's the level of training they have, and they are prepared for this type of call. So once they actually understand what they're going to do, and they strategically attack this call, and they extricate this patient, these same firefighters you saw move metal around this patient, pull this patient out, put him on the backboard, and bring him to the back of the truck. These are the same firefighters that are now transitioning to medical modalities. Now they're actually performing life-saving treatment. And I want to identify some of the treatment they did. So first, the patient had an unstable airway. So they actually had to secure their airway. What do? They took a laryngoscope, put it in the patient's mouth, displaced the jaw, visualized the trachea, put the tube in, inflate the cleft. Now they own the airway. They have completely taken over the airway for this patient. Then you saw where they actually stuck a needle in the patient's chest. And that was because of the trauma they sustained. They had to reinflate the lung, and that's how we do it. All this is taking place on the side of the road at night in the back of a truck. That's the skill set they have. But one other thing you may not have recognized is when they were going from the truck and they were taking the patient in the stretcher to the helicopter, there was blood hanging from the stretcher. That is whole blood. Whole blood saves lives. Whole blood is proven. This is military tested. This is battle tested of how it saves lives. We are one of three in the entire state of Florida out of 462 registered departments that carry whole blood. That is a life-saving difference. That's the caliber of our people. That is how they are trained. Now, keep in mind, all this happens within what we call the golden hour, 60 minutes. We do not have a trauma center in Martin County, so we fly them to the county north, we fly them to the county south. They went from that dinner table on scene to figure out how to extricate that patient from that vehicle, to doing a decompression on them, to hanging blood, to get them to the helicopter and flying them to the county north or south to a trauma surgeon to give them that life-saving treatment under 60 minutes of time. It is a statistical fact that if we get them to a trauma surgeon, under 60 minutes, they have a higher probability of survival. So I just wanted to kind of showcase the skill set, the caliber of what our people have. Now, I want to transition into the contract. And I think it's very important to start the discussion with this. As your fire rescue chief, as your fire rescue administration, we 100% wholeheartedly endorse this contract. Everything in this contract, they are completely deserving of. To operate at that caliber, they deserve every item in this contract. So when we talk about a couple things in fire rescue, we're going to talk about recruitment and we're going to talk about retention. Now, if you remember about over a year ago, we came before the board and we asked to apply for a SAFE grant for 40 additional full-time employees because of the demand of the community on our workforce. And we needed to put extra trucks on the road. We didn't have the personnel for it. And it's been an overtime burden ever since. we were not awarded the SAFER grant. I came to you mid-budget, just a few months ago, and I asked if we can get 20 today, and then request permission to apply for that additional 20 in the next SAFER grant to still get that 40, but I needed immediate relief. You all agreed, you gave us the green light, we went back and started recruiting. We had roughly 400 people in the queue to come to Martin County Fire Rescue. 400. That's not a bad number, right? We made the phone calls. We said, we got a place now. We have the date, the time. We have openings. Come be a part of Martin County Fire Rescue. Out of that 400, only 140 answered the call and said, okay, I'll be there. Okay, so that's one flag. Now, the day of testing, the day where they actually apply for the job and test through the process, 30 of them didn't show up. No phone call, nothing at all. Now I'm down to 110. Now, I'm not going to get into the generational conversation of how that works, but my point is I'm down to 110 people. Now I have to put 110 people through a testing process. In that, we have an academic side of it, and we have a physical side of it. Once we put them through all that process, I'm now down to 70 people for 20 spots. That is a problem. That is a recruitment issue. That threw a red flag. So what I want to talk about is replacement costs, because this is important for the taxpayers to understand. Firefighter paramedic, that's a utility player for any fire rescue organization across the nation. They are the utility player. They are very diversified. They can go in different positions. So they're really, really well sought out. But everybody is having a shortage in this particular area. When we recruited those 20, over half that we hired were not firefighter paramedics. They were firefighter EMTs. So we have currently lost 4. I'm only going to talk about Palm Beach County because that's where we lose them to. So that's what this comparison is, and that's going to show you the replacement cost. When we lose one firefighter paramedic, I hire a firefighter EMT, which we currently did. Roughly with the salary, fringes, gear, medic school, it's going to cost me roughly over $282,000. Medic school in itself is over 15 months of just paramedicine, 100%, very arduous process. In that 3 years, it's going to take me to get that EMT trained up to be a level of a medic for Martin County Fire Rescue as a day 1 medic, which is a difference. They don't have that experience that what you saw in that video. But between that and the overtime that we incurred along the way, $420,000, my total cost is $702,000 to replace one fire medic with a firefighter EMT. Let's say we're fortunate enough to get some paramedics, ones that just got out of school. They don't have the experience, but they are trained, which does save us from sending them to paramedic school, which is a long process. Even if we hire that medic and train them up to the level of Martin County Fire Rescue and to the level of the standard that the community expects from us when we deliver our service to them, that medic is going to cost us, because they have to pay overtime for up to a year to get them up into the speed of the training they need to be. That training with the salary, fringes, and gear, overtime the entire way through, my total cost is going to be roughly $259,000 for one person. That's leaving a medic, replacing with a medic. And that's tough to do as it is because we don't recruit well enough for it. So what I want to transition into is the current contract, not the one that you're voting on today. This is important to look at. A step 1, day 1 firefighter in Martin County right now, if they drop their gear, they go to Palm Beach County, they will overnight gain $21,000 just by walking 20 miles south. That's all they got to do. The one I want you to pay attention to is the step 5, which is your 5 or 6 year employee. Those are the ones that you just saw performing in that video. Those are the ones that have the skill set. They have the sets, the reps, and they're able to do those high-level treatment modalities that you just witnessed, including that helicopter. That step 5 medic today drops their gear, goes to Palm Beach County. As a day 1 person, they will gain over $7,000. That is a retention issue. This is something important to note. Out of all of our paramedic, the classification that we have in Martin County Fire Rescue, roughly 60% of that group is in that 1 to 6 year time frame. 60%. We went through this 10 years ago where we lost a lot of people. It's what we're trying to prevent today. So with the proposed contract, here's what we did. We had to front load this contract because we don't have 3 years to wait for this to happen because we're going to have a retention issue. So In step one of the proposed contract that you're voting on, if that same one-year fire medic or firefighter leaves and goes to Palm Beach County, they're still going to gain over $15,000. Look, we know we're not going to be Palm Beach County. We don't want to be Palm Beach County, and Palm Beach County will never have the culture that Martin County has. But we have to identify that, and we still have to narrow that gap, and that's what this contract does. But the one to really focus on is back to that 5 or 6 year employee. That one now, if they drop their gear and go to Palm Beach County and start at day one, they will lose roughly $1,372. I get it. It's not a lot of money, but it's a step in the right direction. So we feel this contract is going to help us on the recruitment and the retention side. And this is something that we believe is going to help us deal with the issues that we have to deal with today. So at this point, I'll kind of conclude the presentation, and I'll be open to take any questions you may have.
Chief, thank you. Appreciate that. Questions for the chief or his team from the commissioners?
Wow.
No questions?
He did a great job.
Members of the public looking to address us on this topic? None. I'll ask a couple of questions. More for the edification of the public. I have had the opportunity to have some of these conversations with the staff, as well as the fact that my oldest daughter, 27 years old, some of her high school and college classmates are in the mix, if you will. So I've heard anecdotally, whether they worked here in Martin County or elsewhere in Palm Beach County. Now, there's a lot of municipalities also in Palm Beach County, so it's not just like, here in Martin County, I guess we have City of Stewart and Martin County, but you get into Palm Beach, there's tons of little smaller municipalities that also have their departments that are also, you're talking specifically the county, correct, Chief?
That is correct.
So some of those smaller communities that are also looking to maintain their own, the same issues that you mentioned about retention, recruitment and retention, even the smallest of departments are going through the same thing. They might be talking about 1 or 2 people here or there, but they are paying even more generously, correct?
Correct.
So I have heard, through my daughter and her friends that Palm Beach County is actively looking to fill potentially up to 250 spots. Is that about an accurate number?
It's close to 300, but yes.
300. How many members of our entire department are there?
Well, on boots on the ground, you're roughly 350. It would wipe us out.
Yeah. Now, I don't expect that they would get the whole department, but I'm just saying, to just apples to apples, they are looking for as many people as we nearly are. And the other thing that I have heard from residents, and I share with residents, is that, most of us work, Monday through Friday jobs. And so if I were to look for something else to do, I can't look in Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale, Ocala, Orlando, because I'd have to commute there every single day. Fire rescue, a lot of people don't take that into consideration. I have some friends and neighbors that live in Palm City. They're Miami-Dade firefighters because they drive down there and they stay there. So we're not just competing against, a local job for a local job, and a regular employee would have to think about, well, how long is my commute going to be? It's different for you all. And, when I have shared the information, and I'm sure my colleagues have had to do the same thing, when I have shared the information, I'll be honest, when I first heard the percentages that you were talking, they were sort of shocking. But when you sit down and you start to go through the costs of the training and then the lack of personnel that we require creates overtime scenarios for the existing personnel, which just obviously, when I first came on board, and Commissioner Hurd and Commissioner Smith were already here, there was this whole concept of, they're getting all this overtime and it's too much. Well, and then the SAFER grants originally knocked a lot of that down, but you didn't speak much of the demand from our community, the increased demand on our community. Can you give me an idea of call volume, and if you could break it down, into some of the departments. If you don't know, I'm sure you probably know the answers off the top of your head, but if not, I don't think our residents completely understand, like Station 21 in Palm City, how many calls do they get in a year? And what are the numbers up from? You had brought that forward a couple of months ago. I think it bears repeating.
So if we just go back to the original SAFER grant and back in '09, and we looked at the call data that changed from '09 to where we are current, we have gone up roughly 63%. Port Salerno itself, Station 30, has gone up just in itself 110% in call load. Back in 2009, Station 30 was a busy.
Can you tell us where these
station.
are so people know?
Station 30 is in Port Salerno area, and Palm City, another one. That went up, I think, by roughly 90% since '09. But total call load that we're doing is roughly 30,000 calls a year, but you start breaking that down to unit responses. Unit responses, what I mean is actual trucks on the road. One call can take multiple trucks, but unit responses, and I'm kind of going off the cuff a little bit, but you're probably roughly 55,000 unit responses, emergency vehicles driving to an emergency on the road per year. And it's going up, and we're actually trending right now to where our, just in the last, this up to June right now, we've had seven structure fires. Now, this is when the house is actually really on fire, right? So this is significant. It took 68 apparatus to address roughly 7 structure fires, 127 personnel, and that averages 18 personnel on each specific call. So if you think about stations, people ask the question of, why does it take so many people? Like, why do you have the personnel you have? And I think for the public, because we shared the video, the best way to break it down is what you just saw in the video. So you saw the crews respond to a call. You have the engine on scene dealing with the hazards of such as fire, such as the electrification. They pull it out. You have the rescue receiving that patient. They have to take that patient and start doing the treatment modalities. Then you have your supervision up there of running the entire call, managing all resources coming in. Then bringing a Lifestar helicopter, that's another additional employees on there. Then secure a landing zone for the helicopter to land. That's a minimum of 4 people. If we don't secure landing zones, and I'm just trying to showcase the numbers, we will have people drive through, walk through, run through, take their bike through landing zones actively when a helicopter is landing. Why? Because a helicopter doesn't normally land in the places they land. We create that landing zone because we have to get that patient quick access to the helicopter. But as far as call load, 63% would be the rough since 2009 of what we have gone up since.
What do you attribute that to? Now, I know that, look, there's been increases in population in the county, but not nearly to those levels. There have been I know I've heard you say that a lot of the calls are, from assisted living facilities, which we do have a large amount of, and it climbs. But it can't be specifically from that. I know that also, I'll give a real-world example. If you had to go to the doctor, a lot of people will call. In the older communities, they spread the word to each other, the neighbors, that instead of the husband or the wife driving the spouse to the emergency room where you'll then wait in the waiting room, you dial 911 and you go in the ambulance, whether you needed that or not. You don't show up for someone that's got, shortness of breath and say, you should have driven your spouse there. You're taking them. And you see an increase in people just calling for ambulances just because they know that it sort of gives them sort of the fast pass into the emergency room?
It's a very common statement when we arrive on a scene to a low-level priority call that I called you because it gives me access to the emergency room. In reality is, one, we transport them all. But that's not true for the general public listening, because what will happen is we'll take you to the emergency room. They'll see it's a low priority. They will put you in triage back where technically you would have started if you drove yourself. But yes, that is one area, one very small area. But the other area, our motor vehicle collisions have gone up drastically. I think we're roughly, and I'm really kind of going off the cuff here, but roughly 133%. And I'm talking about just a few year snapshot. And what I contribute that to, I'm no expert on it. The only thing I can tell you is what we respond to. It's the distractions of our vehicles today, from people being on their cell phones, but between the technology of the vehicles alone, there's so much activity in the driving seat of a car today that people cannot be that distracted to get into constant accidents. And these accidents are occurring all the time. This morning, you were doing public comment. And when we talked about the trauma call, there was an active trauma call happening over your heads while you were doing, you had public comment here. And we had an incident that happened that was a trauma alert near the Roosevelt Bridge that we had to fly out. These are happening on a daily basis. But yes, the assisted living, that's another factor. As far as the census, you're right, the census does not match the call load. But how people utilize us is different today than what it was. We are looked at primary care because people know you call us, we will be there. We're going to be there quick, we're going to be efficient, and we are going to treat you no matter what. So that turns you into a primary care.
Good to know. Commissioner Smith?
Some years back, there was a time with these contracts that the board at that time decided that we should go out of house and we should hire experts out of house and do our negotiating. And that got turned around later on with different boards. And I just got to tell you all how, at least on my end of this thing, and I'm sure all of ours, how grateful we are that you all are able to pull all this stuff together without having to go outside, without having to spend that money, having our administration, our rescue administration, the union all pull together and pull off what you're pulling off. I said to both sides early on in this process that at some point this would all have to come together and people would have to agree. And there was no way that either side could come up and disagree because it probably wouldn't move forward that way. And I congratulate all of you for getting where we have gotten. Sometimes it's not easy, and sometimes there's polar opposites in the thought process. But I think having our own folks internally handle all this and do it in-house, it saves the taxpayer money on that end of it, but I think it also keeps everybody's focus on the prize at the end, where you don't have someone independent out there with their own objectives, their own mindset, and almost to some extent, how can I do this in such a way so I have to come back the next time and do it and keep feeding off of that process. And I congratulate you guys for getting where you've gotten. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, our public, and I think, Chad, I think your opening comments at the opening of the Island Station the other day are spot on. It's all about response time. It's all about having an amazing trained staff. It's about the professionalism. It's about everything that was in that video. And making it happen to where I think even ironically to your comment that we didn't even know what was going on this morning during public comment. And that just kind of shows how well things run and how things happen and how incredibly proud we are of all of you for making this all happen the way it has happened. So congratulations on all that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hetherington?
I would echo those comments because you made the negotiation process look completely seamless on this end. And all the hundreds of, and I'm sure, many of my colleagues talking to residents every day, hundreds and hundreds of residents, never ever have I heard once that anybody is willing to sacrifice the level of service that you showed in that video. They're just not willing. That's a priority for the residents. That's a priority, for me, that we have top-notch public safety and our first responders. And I've never heard anybody say that, yeah, I'm willing to pay a little less, if for less service. So I think it's a matter of we can't afford to lose our people. We have to keep our people because the scenario that you described in one of the beginning slides, that scenario shows that we're still paying if we don't keep this, competitive. So we're paying in overtime. We're paying and we're not keeping our retaining and recruiting. So therefore, that's impacting our level of service, which is 100% what I hear from residents is they value that. So thank you for what you do and what you put into this contract, and we certainly appreciate it, and I know the residents will appreciate it too.
Thank you. Chief, you have your group here in the front, but behind them is the leadership of the union. Now, I know that during negotiations, you sort of, sit on separate sides of the table, even though it's the same family. I'd like to compliment the union leadership because there have been years past where, the initial negotiation was very challenging. Even that year that Commissioner Smith was speaking about where an outside firm was brought in, I think it went to impasse. And that can't be good for the organization. That can't be good to, to argue and fight and bicker. It fractures a group that needs to not only work together, and for the leadership, sometimes have to take that information and then have it agreed upon by the rank and file, and that's not an easy process, where that process has been sort of divided. So when we talk about a smoother kind of operation or negotiation where it didn't have to get so brass knuckles, and Rocco can relate with me to that brass knuckles kind of negotiations, it leads back to putting the contract to bed and everyone sort of picking up the same strategy. Commissioner Hetherington's point is accurate. The residents expect and require and demand a very high level of service, because without it, the ramifications are fatal or catastrophic at the very least. And so they don't want to sacrifice any bit of it. And I think when I've shared this most recent case scenario, that business people know you can't lose our people. And, the institutional knowledge of allowing people to, hey, I know that, we've been to a call there before. I know exactly that house it's weird. They don't have a number in front of the house. You got to go around the corner. It's tucked in. And I know they have a dog, or I know they have an autistic child, or, I know that they have a child or a senior family member that might be, have Alzheimer's or dementia. If you're constantly rotating our personnel in and out, they don't know those things. So I know some people will be frustrated when they hear about the increases and things like that. I think you laid out a reasonable business strategy on why it's appropriate. And so you'll have my support in the vote today for it. I think our residents expect us to do it. So with that, I'd entertain motions.
I will move staff's.
1 second, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Commissioner Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. A few Scrivener's errors were noted or discovered in the contract, so we're asking for approval subject to giving staff the authority to correct those Scrivener's errors. So I just want to put that on the record.
That I cannot do. That's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's
I thought
back.
he was up till midnight.
Okay. If our motion maker and seconder would
I-
agree to that.
I will,
You seconded?
Nobody yet?
I will.
I will include subject to Scrivener's errors.
You were the second. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, Chief and your team, I certainly appreciate your efforts, your professional expertise. It's an expectation that we all hold, that when we dial 911, that we're going to be taken care of very well and professionally. However, I just can't support your contract because of the cost to the taxpayers. It's 12% increase in the first year, 3% increase in the second year, and another 3% the third year. And that's to the base. So, and then the sheriff has a Me Too opening clause in his contract. So we're going to get the same request from the sheriff. And I was here in 2005, 2006, 2007, when our economy was in overdrive, and we were adding positions, and we were increasing salaries, and everything was doing wonderfully until the bottom fell out in 2008, 2009, 2010. And our economy fell apart, and so did our budget. We had to close libraries, we closed parks, we stopped mowing, we furloughed employees. I furloughed myself for several years, so that when we do these big market adjustments and the bottom falls out, the only thing that we can afford to do is pay for public safety. And there's more to county government than public safety. We're not, so the increase in just this contract alone in the next year is $6 million. It doesn't include capital. It doesn't include 20 new hires. It doesn't include training facilities. It doesn't include new fire stations. It doesn't include trucks. There's so many additional expenses, and as the fiduciary representative for our taxpayers, I have to protect my taxpayers. And also our non-bargaining employees and our Teamsters, who we value just as much, are going to be receiving 4% salary adjustments next year. And they feel inflation just as much as you do. So I am not going to be supporting this contract.
Okay, let me unpack some of that. Respectfully so. I would love to not support the contract. I would love to say that I am the fiduciary representative of the county's taxpayers and vote no on your contract. However, if 3 of us took that position, you have no contract. I don't agree that one of the parts of the history of 2005, 6, 7, 8 that was missed is that when that did happen and the bottom fell out for everybody, the firefighters union gave back their pre-negotiated raises. They didn't temporarily, put them on hold. They gave them back. And then we worked towards that. And I agree that fire rescue and sheriff's deputies, our public safety, if I always use the expression, if there's the first dollar of people's taxes, they expect it to go for fire rescue and sheriff's office. Because closing the libraries and not cutting the grass as frequently, those of us that were here furloughed, it's different. Not every job within the county's personnel structure, employee structure is the same. You led off with the fact that what I call them street doctors. I try to use the example of if you were, and a lot of your personnel could work in the hospital. Your wife works in the hospital. It's a honorable position location-wise, but what you're doing, they're doing it in climate-controlled, absolutely perfect, designed perfect emergency rooms with the personnel all ready to go. The lighting is proper. It's not pouring rain. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. Now you take that exact same thing and you put it on the side of 95 or in someone's backyard in the pouring rain, and the family members are screaming and yelling because something catastrophic has happened, and you are still required to do your jobs and save the patient. I don't blame fire rescue for the increase in calls, for the technicalities, for the technical responsibilities you have now, like you just mentioned, the single example of the blood. I never even thought about cutting somebody out of a Tesla. It didn't even dawn on me, the new requirements, as well as the fact that those cars catch on fire and they blow up, and there's a whole new ballgame. And no one wants to hear you make excuses. They just want to hear it. No one wants to wait longer for the ambulance to show up, or only 2 people show up when the person weighs 350 pounds and 2 people, I don't care how strong they are, they can't do it. So, I would prefer not to vote for your contract. And I think the public differentiates the fact that, for those of us that will support it, even if they don't like a 12% increase, you don't like a 12% increase. That's just the way it is. And so I will put myself, politically out there because I think the residents understand, value, and appreciate what we're talking about here today. And if we were to vote no today and your contract were to fail, you'd have to go back to the drawing board, and all of those accolades we talked about negotiating back and forth amongst the parties, including our staff, you'd have to start over, and it would send a terrible message to the folks that are deciding, do I stay in Martin County or do I take that extra 20 or 15,000 and drive just up the road to Palm Beach? I think not only is it the money, you've heard me say at the fire stations, I think we are now finally in a position to treat the personnel with respect on where they have to live and sleep and shower and eat, which most of us don't do at work. And then the training facility, I think, is appropriate, and there's a financial benefit to doing that, but I also think it sends the proper message that the commission majority of however that works out to be values and appreciates the service on behalf of our residents. So, yeah, I wish I didn't have to vote for your contract too, but I will. Commissioner Smith.
And I think to tag on to that a little bit, I think if I were to phrase what I think and how I think about all this, and I would say this to any group if I were talking to them, protecting our residents, whether you want to say it financially or physically, should be the number one job we do. And there's a cost to that. And there's a cost to protecting our public that they expect, that they support, and quite frankly, every time they ask for it, it better show up. And so I have no trouble justifying that or taking that position because that's what people expect. Maybe 50 years ago that was different. But today, people have an expectation of what they are going to get delivered. And so my definition of protecting our public is making sure that we have the best trained men and women possible, and to the point of having the best that we can afford. To me, that's protecting our residents. And so good for you guys. I'm incredibly supportive and proud of where you have come to, both sides and our staff, to make it all happen.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smith for staff's recommendation of the contract. What? Seconded by, what?
I made the motion.
Oh, I apologize, he was the second. We have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington for staff's recommendation of the approval of this contract, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Thank you very much.
Just in closing, I would be remiss and I don't want to, in an effort not to be redundant, but I am going to be. I want to thank the Fire Rescue Administration team for this negotiation process. They did an amazing job. I want to thank our lead negotiator, Sarah Walker. I mean, this is a huge animal to conquer, and she did. Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney, she kept us straight, and she really did, and she did a phenomenal job. The Executive Board for working with us so diligently, and I don't want you to think those rooms were like we were just eating biscuits and drinking tea, because it wasn't. But we got to a place where we needed to get, and it was with their effort, it got us there. But this is the big one. The MVP again, David, if he can stand up, Chief David Hayes, he loves being recognized. This guy crushed it with formatting.
standing? I can't tell.
That is Chief David Hayes, yeah. This guy's amazing. He did an amazing, amazing job with just reformatting this contract and everything. He is our MVP, but ChatGPT, people talk about, we have David. And then, of course, everyone's going to talk about Matt Resch because he's always the gold nugget in everyone's pocket, and we love Matt. So I think I got it all. Yes. Did I miss anyone? Oh, Matt, yeah. And it goes without saying, the Assistant County Attorney, yeah, right. Oh, and then we're going to go with Don Donaldson. Yeah, we got Scott.
Mr. Sator, I'm pretty sure you have to shave your head now.
That's funny.
You sure?
So, but I just want to thank them all for their leadership and everything they did with
Don't.
this. It was a lot.
Do it.
It'd be like cutting the mustache off. Don't do it.
Scott Risk, if he had here, he would have lost here, but you did an amazing job.
Did an amazing job, those guys back there. All right, well, that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks, head back out. We'll take a moment, allow them to clear the room, and then we're going to take up the conversation from this morning, which was the State Road 710 Beeline Highway Project update. That was the slides from the Florida Department of Transportation.
And Commissioner, while they're coming up, I do have a administrator comment at the end of the day, in case you're, that's all, just letting you know, thank you.
Okay, it's like a little sneak preview. A lot of people were just getting ready to tune out, and they're like, wait a second, Don's going to have something interesting to say at the...
I also will have an addition.
Well, here...
Very quick.
Layla, you going to have anything for us? Miss Gordon, anything? Maybe. Okay. I think, considering the fact that Commissioner Jenkins heard the presentation yesterday, I think you can begin without him.
Okay, fair enough. Board, Commissioners, thank you. George Zama, Public Works Deputy Director. per the comments this morning, we wanted to provide an update on the State Road 710 and County Road 714 intersection. As many of you are aware, it's a pretty dangerous intersection of our county two-lane road, our arterial road that intersects with State Highway. The State Highway is a two-lane, high-speed roadway, and there have been several options put into place, which I will certainly go over. But in the meantime, at the MPO board meeting yesterday, FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, District 4 representatives came to provide an update, and they are taking some intermediate efforts, including maintenance and some updates to signage and pavement markings at the intersection for temporary safety measures. So I can highlight that as shown. The location, there's several projects that have been identified in the MPO.
Is it possible for you to zoom in, or can,
Yes, I could try to zoom in here.
just if anybody's watching, you can barely see it.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Super.
It is a little hazy because I did copy this from the meeting yesterday. So 747 State Road 710 runs northwest through the county, western portion of the county, and 714 intersects with the roadway at the very west end of the county. So as I mentioned, this project, safety improvements were identified in the MPO priority list. We have an unfunded project priority list that we submit to the state every year to coordinate with the state and program safety improvement projects, both on-system and off-system. On-system is on state roads, and off-system are projects on county roads. At times, the state will perform projects on county roads at the request of the county. What makes this project a little different is that we have a county road that ties into the state road, and as I'll mention, one of the options actually will carry potentially carry the roadway into a different county and a different Florida Department of Transportation district, which would be Okeechobee County and District 1. As I mentioned before, I zoomed in on the slides. The state has been taking some intermediate efforts to perform maintenance, such as site distance. So we just wanted to present that this is what they presented yesterday, that there were some site distance issues with vegetation. They've since mowed it down for better site distance to improve visibility. They also are proposing to add some signage, including some edgelit signs for stop ahead, some signage delineating the intersection ahead on State Road 710, the intersection with 714. And they also are looking to add some striping with actually pavement markings for stop ahead, stop bar, and edge marking, as well as updating the hash striping and the centerline striping on 710. So the DOT representatives presented three options for intersection improvements, and I could certainly go through all three options at the will of the board. The MPO board did approve one of these options with an exception, or with an addition, I should say.
Let's talk about that one then.
So I'll do that, and with that was, did include some elements of this first option. So just to jump ahead, the option that was selected was actually realigning 714 with the intersection of Southeast 126 or County Road 15A in Okeechobee, which will make this a two-way controlled intersection in line with the Okeechobee County Road. So as you could see, the existing 714 follows the county line and makes a sharp bend and turns into 710. This would realign the roadway with the Okeechobee State or County Road. Right-of-way would need to be obtained. There have been preliminary talks with the property owner. So this was the selected option. It would also include a right turn lane and a left turn lane to both northbound or southbound or eastbound, westbound, however you look at it. Both sections of the roadway would each have a right turn lane and a left turn lane, but there was also recommended to add an acceleration lane, which was presented in option 1. There would be an acceleration lane for each direction to allow motorists to get up to speed, because this is actually has a design speed of 60 miles an hour. So vehicles are running 60 miles an hour plus through this intersection. So this would give an opportunity for vehicles to have a free right-hand turn and get up to speed and merge in with traffic. Also, I wanted to note that it was recommended to add the in-ground pavement markers, which are the vibratory pavement markings that vibrate when you run over them, because there's a potential for vehicles traveling through the through lane to treat this like it's a passing lane. So that was what was presented and approved. This option was approved, and so the next step would be for county staff to meet. It was proposed that Martin County staff meet with Okeechobee staff to work out maintenance agreements. We would really like to meet with Okeechobee County to discuss what their concerns would be for maintenance or any other concerns as far as acceptance of infrastructure. Because in the meantime, Florida Department of Transportation District 4 and District 1 have been in talks, and they seem to be in agreement to move forward with this option. So there's been quite a bit of coordination involved, and they are looking to set up a meeting with both districts and both metropolitan planning agencies. So before that, as well as each of the county representatives, so it would be a 6-member stakeholder meeting to discuss this project. And we feel beforehand it would be good to meet with Okeechobee County and their staff to discuss this project prior to that meeting.
Commissioner Smith.
A couple other quick points to add. This option was almost half the expense of option 1, I believe. This is like $5.5 million. The other was $13 million or so, which was nice, sir. The other thing I thought was interesting in the presentation, from their safety studies, the westbound movement, or I guess westbound, merging onto 710 from 714 going northbound, 25% of those vehicles coming out of that intersection then make a left-hand turn onto 126th Avenue. That movement right there.
Right.
And by turning this into a controlled 4-way intersection, you eliminate 25% of those movements, meaning a right-hand turn onto 710, then crossing the speed through lanes because you're merging into the speed lanes, then merging into the decel lane, and then making a left-hand turn. So from our residents, which is really where so much of this is emanated from, I think that option provides probably one of the safest movements from the design piece of all this. So there was that, there was the cost, and I think the interest in getting our two commissions together to talk about the maintenance agreements or whatever we need to do is certainly imperative. Probably the most important thing along the timeline issue was that the EIS statement that was done probably 10 years ago, 2011, was reviewed, considered, and they are accepting that statement as valid for today, so we don't lose 2 years in the process of that piece for the 4-laning of the rest of the project. So a lot came out of that. There was also the 609 interchange.
Signalization?
Huh?
Traffic signalization?
Yeah. At 609 and 710, that came up as part of the conversation, and the idea that we need to accelerate funding in that component as much as possible. There are discretionary MPO funds that we have at our discretion, and I don't know if they're allocated or not allocated, but they're called SU funds. That's one place to look at. The impact fees out in Indiantown are another place to look at if those are applicable. And then any developer contributions that are happening out there that might be appropriate to help fund that, because I think it was something like how many million? If the whole intersection was done, was
The first option was around 7 million, and a lot of, the second option
included
was
drainage
was
and-
13 million, and this realignment option that was selected without the acceleration lane
talking
was
about
5 million.
609.
Oh, 609? Yeah, it was, I think in our meeting yesterday.
like
we
$1.5 million.
Off the cuff, we discussed 2 million, $1.5 million, 2 million, yes.
I'm sorry, you're right, but I was getting confused, and I worked that into this conversation, but I think it's important because it's all within this segment of what's trying to get accelerated and fixed. But you're right, the cost of this 714 version of coming into 710 was, I think, 5.5 million or whatever that was, and then the other was 13 million on the other option, the first option. Anyway, I thought it was a pretty productive conversation. I thought FDOT did a really good job of getting this stuff to us. And again, on the appreciation side, the EIS statement shouldn't be underlooked. I mean, that was a big deal, shaving those couple of years off the process.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that the FDOT representative said that because they are able to use the existing EIS, their design team is ready to go,
That's good to hear.
shaves off way more years.
Commissioner Jenkins.
So I think the conversation with the Okeechobee Commission is going to be very easy.
Yeah, they're friends of ours.
I did have a conversation with one of their commissioners and got the impression that they are as enthusiastic about correcting this situation as we are, even identifying their concerns on our side of the county line, not only just the intersection. So I think that's going to be a very easy conversation. I think like every conversation, it just comes down to the money, right? So
All about the money,
Yep.
money. Is that it?
it's always it.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Mostly everything's been said, but I think that the flavor of the conversation was some of the other improvements, can be done near term. This, although it takes more coordination, is half the cost and is way safer than, some of the near-term improvements. So, and this time is of the essence, and I think Mayor Thomas, right? Susan Gibbs Thomas emphasized that, they like this option, but time was of the essence that we get together with Okeechobee and make this happen. And then an aside, the traffic signalization, I don't know whose district that is in now. That is when the residents came to the MPO to talk about the safety of 710, they emphasized that traffic signalization was very important to them at 710 and 609 as a dangerous intersection. And that seems to me like a project that we could pull out and get done with DOT, also in an urgent manner.
District 3 probably could use all of his district funds for these projects.
Thank you for that suggestion.
It's just a suggestion. Thank you, of course, having, magnanimously given up my position on the MPO. From my colleague.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then gave up the intersection to my other colleague.
Say thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. After years of really putting this together, the most difficult thing to give up was the property owner at this intersection. His name is Mr. Sanchez. Is this his property?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, was he represented by Mr. Carmody yesterday at the MPO meeting? I know he's represented by Mr. Carmody.
No, he wasn't there.
Okay, I need someone from our staff to reach out to Mr. Carmody, because as far as I'm concerned, I love that my colleagues are in agreement. I like that the staff agrees. I like that it's the less expensive option and it's the fastest option. But let's remember Mr. Sanchez in these negotiations. He has been a generous supporter of this, very patient. I think we've been working on this, and of course, Beth Beltran and her MPO staff, she had really crafted we probably have to send her to the Middle East to negotiate, because she was able to, many years ago, already had the letters written and signed between 1 and 4 at the FDOT, and the commission is up, in Okeechobee and here, and she really crafted quite a deal. I'm sure she's part of this. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the property owner who's out there, Mr. Sanchez, feels that this was, I know he had a couple of, I think this will be okay. I know he had a couple of options that he was very interested in, and 1 or 2 that he absolutely would not support. So having a willing and participatory property owner would make a huge difference versus having him be out there as adversary. Let's take Mr. Don Donaldson.
Just in terms of your comments, the reason why this was revisited by the MPO was due to Mr. Carmody representing Mr. Sanchez, and this preferred option was their preferred option. So
This
that,
one.
yes, so this is, so that dialogue has taken place, and which is why this is before you today.
Thank you. That's what I like to hear. Staff
Jim Gordon, Public Works Director, for the record,
and public.
and Public Records Director.
That's right.
Just wanted to touch on a couple of things. So the SU funds that are a potential funding mechanism for the 609 signalization, we currently have those tagged to the Cove Road widening. So we're going to have to look at the mechanics of that and look at the timing of them. And we'll get back to you individually or at a future MPO board meeting, just to kind of let you know what that would look like.
Do you know how much that is?
It's about $2 million.
$2 million a year, roughly.
Yep. And then the widening, the reason that the options 1 and 2 were so expensive is because it requires widening of 710. And if you've been out there, there's those deep canals on both sides of the road. DOTs, when they do the 4-laning of 710, it's going to be an exorbitant amount to do that, because they're eventually going to have to fill that stuff in and pipe those ditches. So
How are they going to 4-lane 710 if it has a scenic highway designation?
No, 710.
710.
Oh, 710, never
Yep.
mind.
Yeah, no, they're not going to 4-lane 714. But 710, that's why. So eventually, they're going to have to spend that money. But you're right, it doesn't have to be with this project. It just makes it much more approachable. And the last thing I have is that we'll absolutely reach out at a staff level and get that discussion done, and then update you before you have your discussion with their board.
Yeah, they're great out there. The signage that's more immediate, Mr. Zama, that would be on 710. Mr. Stokas and I were just out with our friends from Okeechobee at a meeting, and it was daytime, and we were driving back and, sort of half kidding about how difficult it is to visualize when to make the left to come back onto 714. I saw you had a couple of different visuals there. I hope, this was in the middle of the afternoon. At nighttime, when I know I'm looking for it, it's sometimes still difficult when you're coming from Okeechobee to make that left. So I guess it would be these ones right here with the,
Blue.
Junction.
like right there. So the bigger that it could say Martin Highway or this way to Martin County, the better. Because it's almost like trying to go back to the Batcave, for those of us who remember the Adam West Batcave where the bushes parted and you just kept going. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, we can reinforce that and see if we can get some prior notification to this signage here. We'll note that this signage is proposed to be edge lit, so it'll be flashing at night to let you know there's an intersection ahead.
I like it. The new version.
The new version.
But this is going to be for the current version, right?
Yeah, temporarily
Yeah.
for this intersection.
But
yes.
the last thing, and not to put a wet blanket, I'll give Commissioner Hurd the last word, but the last thing is, What's the time frame on the new intersection? You know, I know when we talk about speeding it up and shaving years off, but FDOT years are different. They're like dog years. So what is it really? Will any of us still be alive when this is done?
The design team's ready to go.
They're ready, so ideally, it'd be 2 to 3 years.
See, that's what most people don't think. They are thinking this will happen in the fall. But it's 3 years from now.
Yeah, well, technically, if this is going to be facilitated by the state, they have to perform the right-of-way negotiations, and we can't necessarily interfere with that.
I know. I stopped meeting with him. Commissioner Hurd, you're going to get the final word.
This is unrelated. It just triggered another memory, and that is the intersection of Citrus and 96th at night. I can't tell you how many times I've gone straight to 714 because I missed the turnoff. There's no signage whatsoever.
Well, we have a sign shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look into
Then
that.
we have the people that Stacy hired to do the striping.
So Commissioner Hurd, you're talking southbound on Citrus,
To make the left on
make
the
the left on
96.
96. Okay.
No,
Even northbound, coming from Indian.
They're seniors. They shouldn't
Yeah.
even be driving at night, these two.
and we're not the only seniors driving around here at night.
I mean that purely lovingly. I don't need to hear from the seniors.
God,
Anything else
taking himself.
on this topic? Do you need any action from us? You brought it up this morning, Commissioner Smith, just to purely, Commissioner Heatherington, I'm not giving you the credit you deserve today.
Well, we
I
needed
apologize.
to inform you, Commissioner, because you gave up your spot on the MPO, and we're not there to.
Well, they do call me the
Shannon.
benevolent
Well, I
one.
think it was.
I think it was also for the commission to, Okeechobee County Commission to meet and have a discussion.
So commission permission.
Commission
Permission. In the meanwhile, as Jim mentioned, we will contact Okeechobee County staff and, immediately about the meeting, about this whole project to work out any of the concerns before the commission meets.
So in addition to commission permission.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, I think we have.
Don't make them mad before we get there.
No. I think we're getting closer to the end of the meeting. Why don't we do this? Do you want to be before or after public comment? Thank you. We are at the end of our meeting at 3:11. We'll take 5:05 public comment or end of the meeting public comment. Mr. Pine, would you like to opine? Okay. Mr. Pine is our only member of the public here. Seeing no one else, we will come back to the commissioners. Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Heatherington.
I'm all set.
Really, I like to hear some stuff. Commissioner Jenkins.
I am good, thank you.
Commissioner Hurd.
Set.
It makes it hard for me to, I'm all set. We're with bated breath. Mr. Donaldson, followed by Ms. Woods. Mr. Donaldson, what do you have to share with us?
Yes, Daniel McHenry is our Veteran Service Officer, and as you know, does a really great job for us and has great accolades.
They named a fort after him.
One of the items that he's brought to my attention and why I brought it up today, he brought it up yesterday, was there is a bill that's being sponsored in the House of Representatives, and it has to do with veterans' pay. And I'll try to summarize the particular issue, and it's detailed in a letter I provided to each of you at your dais there. But essentially, the issue is that if you are a service member and you become injured or as a result of your service and you leave without retirement, you get a disability. If you stay on and work till the point that you that you can receive a pension from the military, you can only get that any disability help if it's more than 50% of disability, or you have to forfeit a portion of your retirement benefits in order to gain some disability. So the request is that they would like Congress to amend this provision to allow all veterans, whether they were retired with full retirement or not, to receive the same disability benefits of whether you served a week and were injured and had to leave, or whether you served more than 20 years. And so I think it was a pretty simple request, and we're asking Congressman Mass to sign off on this bill. And so really, all I'm asking for two things is, one, is that you allow the chairman to sign a letter to request Congressman Mass to assist us with this, which Daniel McHenry's had conversations with his staff, not with the congressman yet, and so they're aware that this is coming. And then number two, that you allow us to amend our priorities to allow this to be on our congressional federal support.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. I think you'll see the head nodding. There is no bigger supporter of veterans services than Brian Mast, so I don't think that will be a difficult ask for us to him. He'll probably have more of a challenging issue trying to get it through everybody else, but he's a veterans superstar.
Yes.
Ms. Woods, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sarah Woods, Martin County Attorney. Recently, the Florida legislature in the last session passed a requirement that applies to self-insurance groups we believe may apply to our self-insurance group, which is TRICO, which is Martin, St. Lucie, Port St. Lucie, and the city of Stewart. And what it changes is it makes a requirement that the governing board that runs the group has to be composed of elected officials. Right now, we have representatives that meet. Our insurance representative is looking into it, but in an abundance of caution, I'm going to recommend that in order to comply with this law, which, if it's applicable to our TRICO organization, would require designation of a member of one of you all to represent it to TRICO. The legislation becomes in effect July 1st. I'd like to go ahead and have that ability to have someone appointed in case the determination is that we have to have that. My recommendation is that it either be the chairman or the vice chair would be the person that you would appoint. So if I could have a motion to appoint someone, if needed, to the TRICO board to comply with the law. If we don't, I'll let you know at our next meeting, but again, that'll be after July 1st, so we're just trying to be cautious.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Smith.
With the recommendation of the county attorney's request of us to appoint the chair, and in the absence of the chair or the vice chair, no?
There's no alternative. It would just be one or the other.
That we make as part of our policy direction that the chair be the representative for TRICO.
Thank you. Well, I do have free time considering I'm not on the MPO. Keeping it light. Welcome to your world.
I was just going to say, Commissioners, we would still have the staff meeting to do all the prep work and working with the insurance on making recommendations to the board.
I'll be doing all the prep and all of the
If
recommendations.
you prefer to do that,
I'm going to
that's
dig
fine.
deep into the whole process.
Thank you.
Are you the second? Yeah. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith for our attorney's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I really do appreciate my colleagues'
Thank you, board.
confidence in my abilities. With that in mind, believe it or not, the next time we meet will be July 11th, so I want to wish everyone a safe and happy 4th of July. The summer's nearly over. With that, we wish you all well, and we'll see you on July 11th. Thank you.